In the 60s, they got it right with the beatniks and Bob Dylan and reading poetry in coffee houses and political activism. They got it right. The 90s, they got it right with the coffee houses where you were seeing artists, like famously Jewel making a name for herself just playing out of coffee houses. And you really saw that. So we're kind of like, that's missing today. And when we got into this, we said that's our mission is to kind of bring that back and create something. So it's like, you don't have to walk into Starbucks and just feel like, it's just a cup of coffee, but we're going to create that experience and be like, no, this is Cannibal Corpse coffee. This aligns with me. This makes me feel good. Why not?
Let's have some fun. Hat twins for the day. What's up, everybody? It's Keefy at ghostcoldman.com. I'm super stoked to be joined by Mike from Concept Cafes. You know their coffees. Awesome stuff happening all the time. Mike, how the hell are you, man?
Hey man, thanks for having me. Doing great, man. Just coming off Milwaukee Metal Fest this past weekend.
Oh, that must have been amazing. The lineup was sick. We're big fans of what they're doing out there. I went once to the OG Milwaukee Metal Fest, and then that original founder, Jack Kochik, tried to do some events in the East Coast, which I attended and played. So big fans of Josta bringing it back and the whole team over there. And I saw all the photos. You had so much fun. A lot of people were stoked to get to meet you and probably talk to you about all this coffee.
Yeah, no, it was really great. Most fan friendly festival we've ever been to. It's our first time actually going to it and going in as a one of the big sponsors and vendors was awesome. Just fans, I couldn't ask for a better fan friendly environment, and that's what we're all about. With Concept Cafes is the fan experience, immersive fan experience. It was great. I mean, we had Garza with Suicide Silence was out there, came by, showed off his barista skills for a few minutes there at the booth. And then, we had Guar out on Sunday. So I mean, dude, it was awesome.
Right on. I got to meet Garza back in the day, and he's just a sweetheart of a guy. Could not, all his success could not happen to a better person.
Yeah.
And he's got actually, as a person that interviews lots of people, he's quite good at it. He knows when to listen. He probably doesn't overtalk as much as me. He's very well spoken. He's super cool. I'm so happy for him and you. Just out of curiosity, just let's shine a little light on Milwaukee
Yeah.
Metal Fest for a second. As a vendor, because you've done events, and this is sort of there's kind of a trade business to business and business to consumer side with like coffee festivals and coffee fairs. And so how does Milwaukee Metal Fest experience as a vendor compare to other conventions and fests you've done and cons?
It's great. It's one of our most successful events as a vendor that we've done so far. We've run the gambit of doing, the horror cons, the oddity cons, and different music cons and whatnot. And this is our first one we've really done where it is just strictly. It's not horror and metal. I mean, or anything like that. I mean, it is just straight up, extreme metal, which is what we went into. We thought was going to be really interesting to see the reception. The reception was great. Something we always can tell by the first day whether we're going to sit there and go, hey, we're coming back next year. And like, Friday afternoon, we're like, yeah, we're definitely doing this, next year. And again, it matches our kind of mission of providing that, just the best fan experience as possible. And we get really creative when we do things like that. So yeah, that's for us, it's been great, and it's something we look forward to. Jasta and the team really great, and it's just look forward to something that we think we can build on every single year. So it's exciting to see, where we're going to be, next year and 3 to 5 years down the road, with Milwaukee Metal Fest.
Amazing. And Just has done a great job with everything. And now he's
Yeah.
got Summer Slaughter. Perfect.
Oh yeah.
Bring back all, let's get all the things back. I'm still waiting for the next Mayhem Fest also.
Yeah.
And maybe it can grow into a tour again, but probably not. So metal and coffee, man, like this is your brand, this is your trade. Obviously, you love the music. And before we talk about your musical taste, coffee, like what led you here? How did you want to first make your own coffee? And then like, oh, branded metal coffees. How do we get here?
Yeah. Well, the story starts back in with one of my business partners who we were actually in business together more in the financial world. And I know I look like, got a beard and obituary hat on, really look like the financial guy, but that's reality. And she split off with the company, wanted to go off and do something else, and found a love for coffee, and came back a couple years later and said, Mike, what do you think of this? And again, we've been friends for a lifetime, and I was like, hey, I took a look at it. I was like, I think there's something here. And specifically, I was very interested in the white label and the private label market, saying, hey, man, there's something here, especially with beer coming off some of its worst performances and more younger kids. I don't know if it's like the same, or, out in San Francisco, but I mean, here in Orlando, Florida, I mean, there's a kava bar and a boba tea bar, and going up on every corner. The kids are NA. We're seeing a lot of the older metalhead crowd NA, and I just took a look at that and I said, you know what? I think there is an opportunity here where the craft coffee world is going to become the next craft beer world in the next few years, and it's just going to like start to explode, and you're going to see that really explode in the private label market. So I jumped in really like 2018, and we tried out a lot of stuff locally, working some conventions, creating private labels for that. Anything from burlesque troops, creating private labels for that, and some city stuff we did, community stuff, and said, yeah, this kind of works, like, so why not go to the bigger stage with stuff that we really love, which is horror movies, heavy metal music, and get into that. And we didn't know what was out there until we started really researching it. And it's kind of like on a daily basis, we discover, we're kind of like, and like, for example, Testament, we had no idea they had a coffee out before us. I never understood, or sorry, never knew that Dave Mustaine had a coffee at one point, or even like a lot of these bands. And we took a look at it, saying, what can we do, and what can we do better? And we really started focusing on, going back to what we appreciated, growing up, when we were in middle school and whatnot, and breaking open that first, whether it's, your first Live After Death, record inlay, where you're like, oh my God, this is an amazing experience. Let me memorize the lyrics, listen to this thing on auto reverse. Let me high speed dub it for my friends, and just really get into the artwork, drawing it on my, my Trapper Keeper and all that crap. And, we were like, we really want to bring that back to the coffee world, because the coffee world, I mean, it's 2.25 billion cups served around the world a day. And it's an everyday thing. It's one of the most traded commodities in the world. And it's marketed to such this like kind of taupe home goods store vibe, which is like really 1%. And we're kind of going, in the 60s, they got it right with the beatniks and Bob Dylan, and reading poetry in coffee houses and political activism. They got it right. The 90s, they got it right with the coffee houses, where you're seeing artists, famously Jewel making a name for herself just playing out of coffee houses. And you really saw that. So we're kind of like, that's missing today. And when we got into this, we said that's our mission, is to kind of bring that back and create something. So it's like, you don't have to walk into Starbucks and just feel like, it's just a cup of coffee, but we're going to create that experience and be like, no, this is Cannibal Corpse coffee. This aligns with me. This makes me feel good. Why not? So that's really how it all got started. And then, Cannibal was the first one we worked on. And that kind of started off. A funny story behind that was, got into kind of like an argument with somebody, and about a coffee venture we were thinking about going down, and it didn't pan out, and then you get kind of angry with yourself inside. And I said, you know what, I'm going to make a bet with myself. I'm going to go out and create the most over the top, death metal coffee possible. I just want to shock the world at this point. Who better not? Cannibal Corpse, obviously. Let's get banned in Germany and get banned on Australia on a coffee. So reached out to,
Indonesia.
yeah, exactly. So we reached out to Paul Mazurk. He really liked the idea. We had some basic ideas. Got together with Vince, put together the artwork, and we were kind of like, we don't know if this is going to work. Halloween back in 2022, I believe it was, we launched Nobody knew. We were like, this is going to be a flopper. It's going to be a success. We started seeing the orders coming in, people liking the IG post, and it was just one after another. And we're like, people want to see a disemboweled cannibal zombie on the front of a coffee bag. And that's all she wrote. And that's the story from there. And we didn't want to be a one-trick pony. So we just, said, hey, after that, what's the next thing we can do?
Right on. I so many things to unpack, but I wanted to share my Cannibal Corpse coffee story about the
Yeah.
Metal Blade Museum. So folks may not know, don't know when if you're a visitor to Vegas or not. I was in Vegas in March for Danzig and Down, who you just saw in Milwaukee, and there's a thing called the Metal Blade Museum. It may not be permanent. There's always a possibility they'll move it somewhere else or someone will acquire what they have. But the head of Metal Blade Records, Brian Slagle, has accumulated a lifetime of stuff. Some stuff was lost over the years, and some stuff has come to him from bands and fans. And there's, as you would imagine, the pinnacle band on the Metal Blade label is Cannibal Corpse. Everybody knows the best-selling band in death metal, more or less historically in the physical era of record sales. And I happened to see a good old bag of the Cannibal Corpse
There it is.
coffee right there on top of a display case in an eye view, and I'm not that tall. So if I saw it, people taller than people who are not the size of a hobbit like me will see shit, see this thing, and be like, "Oh shit, Cannibal Corpse has a coffee," and it's amazing. By the way, like just to let you know, this is my second bag. That I actually bought one after I used up the one you sent me as a gift very kindly. So just super cool to see it get prominence there, and there's so much. I urge everybody, it's $20. Go to the Metal Blade Museum. Once in a while, Brian personally will walk you through and curate it for you. But the dude who does it for them is great. I had an amazing time. There will be some content coming eventually around that when I get around to it. But for you personally, just your personal like coffee tastes. What kind of coffee did you drink before you started making these coffees?
Starbucks.
Yeah, it's a good blend. A pike
I'm
a pike roast is good for you.
I knew nothing about coffee, getting into it. My partner knew a lot, and it was just trial by error. What I liked, and kind of learning from there. And a lot of it's luck. I mean, I think going in with kind of a blind taste, for lack of a better term, has helped us out because I'm just going in and with the artist when we collab on these and saying, hey, we think this idea will work. What do you think? And generally we get it right, pretty quickly. And we've been, knock on wood, really good about that so far. But I mean, I went in as a regular coffee drinker, Starbucks, Green Mountain, whatever you're getting off the supermarket shelf or straight through the drive-through gas station. I had no idea. And I guess the best experience, I mean, I'm a vegetarian myself, but at one point in my life, ate meat, but um I guess the best analogy I've ever heard of is, you walk into the Outback and you're getting the, 9.99, special, and you think it's, a good steak, and then you have this experience where you go to, something like a Ruth Chris or a Don Shula or any number of, high end steakhouses, and you go, wow, I couldn't believe the difference was that big. And then, at the end of it, what do you never want to go back to Outback again because you're just like, there's that big of a disparity. But what was also interesting to me was there wasn't that big of disparity in cost. And to use, kind of like a more of an automobile analogy, I said, hey, going from a Honda Civic to a Hyundai Sonata is not a big price difference from, what I know. But the value or the difference in quality is like literally going from that Honda Civic to a Bentley. I mean, it's incredible, the difference in price being that so tiny, but the difference in quality being that huge. And that's what was really, really surprising to me in the beginning.
Amazing. Thank you for unpacking all that. Interestingly enough, I did not drink coffee until my 20s. I'm now in my 50s. I can't imagine a day without a cup of coffee. It's a sad day for me. And I like everything across the board. I've tried them all, I've had them all. And I think I think one of the fun aspects of this is like, I think coffee fans and music fans are not too dissimilar. If you have a real deep passion and love for coffee or vinyl, which I also have a vinyl podcast, or your whiskeys, coffee's right along the same lines. It's worth having. It's worth having a great experience. It's worth having something delicious and satisfying. And that steak analogy was perfect because I'm also a steak person, even if you're not anymore, and you're probably going to outlive me by a lot. And but yeah, definitely. And no shade. Hey, listen, Outback, Bloomin' Onion, and a
Yeah.
$20 piece of steak, not too shabby with some shrimps. Shrimp on the bobby. Yeah, man. Super cool to hear about that. And I'm glad that you're so invested and interested in this. And I know it's kind of a sector that's always evolving, to use some business speak. We're not going to use words like artisan and bespoke, but they are like very specifically crafted and tailored. So now I want to know,
Yeah.
when it comes to the band, just like bands help, sample and suggest things for their beers, alcoholic or non-alcoholic, which we have a lot of experience with both. Like, how involved are the artists in their coffees? Do they have a specific? Do they have requests? Do they say, could it be like this? This is what I like. How deep do you go down that rabbit hole with them?
Somebody asked this question the other day, and I think we answered it in a email blast that went out. And it's the most common question we get, even at Milwaukee Metal Fest. Uh, how do you get to work with these artists? And my response was patience, 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 and persistence. And it is just due to artists touring schedules, global, doing 2 or 3 runs a year, recording, family life, and all that. It's a very small window and opportunity you actually get to collab with artists and get their feedback and get their input. So, but we dive deep, and Cannibal from start to finish was almost a year-long process. I want to say it was anywhere between like 9 and 11 months. And we go as deep as sending samples out on the road. And it's kind of funny. We always say, it's road tested, roadie approved. It's true. If the road crew doesn't like it, then the band's not going to like it. Road crew's not happy. They're not going to drink it. And most importantly, the fans got to like it. So it's really interesting. Like, we go down the rabbit hole with the artist, trying to get it as close as possible to their ideal. But it's also, number two, it's got to match that concept. So, for example, like on Cannibal Corpse, we all agreed, working with Alex and Paul and all the guys, we all agreed that we wanted this kind of feeling of, it's earthy, it's dank, it's woody, it's cedar, like it's like almost being buried and burned alive. So that it's got to match the concept, but it's also got to be palatable to the fans as well. So some artists have some pretty unique coffee tastes. And you got to also get it right and kind of dial it back a little and say, hey, even though you like this, we got to also make it so as many fans out there are going to think this is unique, it's cool, and they are going to want to try it. So you can't get too crazy at some points in time with, different roast levels or different crazy origins. And we've kind of, it all comes managed. So it's a very long, difficult process, and there's a lot that goes into it that most people don't see, but I think we enjoy that process. It's probably very similar to going in and trying to record an album. I mean, like, you're just doing edits and edits and takes and production quality on top of that. So yeah, like you said, not wanting to use the words like craft and artisan, but at the end of the day, we don't like to use those words either, but we use other words. But it really is a craft and a very creative process.
Right on. I have enjoyed all of these coffees. I've been fortunate enough to get to sample 3 of them. I'm drinking the Testament Brazen brand right now in my
Oh, yeah,
heavy metal
right.
shop cup mug I got in Salt Lake City. Shout out to them. And the nerd in me is now going to fully fly. So forgive me in advance.
Yeah,
Everybody knows I work in marketing and social media when I'm not doing Ghost Cult, and even when I'm doing Ghost Cult. And so I love the branding. I love how much it feels like the brands feel absolutely authentic and brilliant. You work with the bands very closely, but also amazing artists and labels. And, in addition to this, I have so many friends of mine jealous that I had this. They were so jealous. This coffee is my favorite so far. It's delicious. People have seen, subscribers to Ghost Call on YouTube and elsewhere have seen our Ministry Laughing Monkey Machine coffee review. So I have a bag, and I want to talk about this branding and this marketing. I know that you used, there was a phrase in a recent press release that said we want to have the same feeling as an opening a beautiful album, right? And it's all around packaging, just so people can see. It's very distinctive. There's no mistaking it. Like you said, this kind of, home goods decor, very beige, a lot of beiges and earth tones and stuff. And it's kind of the same marketing as tea,
yeah,
as supermarket tea, which is fine. And I'll drink I'm from the East Coast. So I remember Dunkin' Donuts before it was everywhere. It was just in the East Coast. And I actually used to live in the neighborhood of the original Dunkin' Donuts, which just I think celebrated 75 years as a location, which is insane. Good for them. I hope you have at least as long a run. And but I love this packaging and just everything about it from what you get in the mail. I have some of the boxes behind me. They're beautiful. It's just like this kind of box set culture or record collector culture that will appreciate this packaging, the care, a sticker, the confetti padding, like it's the labels, everything is just so on point and perfect. So I wanted to talk about your interest in that and how you gonna kind of like how you developed this idea. Like we're gonna do it. We're gonna go all the way, not halfway, all the way with this. I love this so much.
Yeah, it generally starts as an idea or a concept we have, and that's why we're called concept cafes. And the idea of getting into this was to make it feel not. I don't want to say make it feel like a record or make it feel like an LP. We wanted to really make it the experience to be kind of like this, this extended play, this EP. But we wanted to make it really killer as well. One of my favorite EPs of all time, like probably a lot of people say this is the first Garage Days by Metallica. I mean, like start to finish, great. Can listen to that on repeat for the rest of my life on a deserted island. Love it. A lot of it's covers, but who cares? um and but it's that EP that's still synonymous with the band. It can hold its own. So we said, we really wanted the copy to be able to sit on the record shelf, not to detract or take away from the body of music, but to be something there that is not just another piece of merch and not, just another piece of swag or a collectible. We wanted really this to have something to it. So when we got into it, we said, we got to think of this kind of like a record, working with the artists and come up with these concepts and make sure not only the coffee matches, but, the packaging as well. And we didn't want to miss out on any detail. We didn't want to put, the black bag and sacrifice, money. I mean, it costs money to do this, and so we really wanted to put all the effort in, but we didn't just want to put a sticker on a bag. We thought we were going to be shortchanging the artist of saying like, we got this amazing coffee, but it's not in its final packaging. It's not the art. So we really, since we did Cannibal, which was really the first one we did, we've kind of like evolved and kind of figured things out. And, one of the traits, as you can see, is the evolution of the side paneling. And we said, like when you go buy a regular bag of coffee, the side panel is either nutritional info or it's just text. And it's just a lot of it's just useless jargon at the end of the day of telling you, how wonderful the brand is. We were like, let's make the artwork insane on the side and let's keep evolving it. So, that turned into like on Monkey Machine, how do we pierce barbell piercings on the side of the bag? How do we make that illusion? That's kind of cool. On Garza's, how do we make a guitar fretboard on the side of a packaging? And it's stuff like that. And then most people don't know until they actually look at the bottom of the packaging. And I got to throw a shout out to Black Rifle Coffee Company for turning us onto this. I picked up a bag of Black Rifle one day at the supermarket. I was just like, what's on the bottom? And it basically said, this space is blank because nobody looks at it. And I was like, huh. Came back to the shop with the idea of the warehouse with the idea of saying like, hey, we got to put something crazy on the bottom of every bag we come out with. And that's been like one of our signatures that we do. So when you look at the bottom, it's like this extra surprise. Usually it's something to do with the band, but not directly with the concept in a lot of cases, like Cannibal, bloody coffee rings on the bottom. There, the kids with the baboon, faces looking, shit ice cream for Ministry, of course. And and we're continuing to evolve like into the tour tins. We did a dying fetus. We've done the Testament. So we've done that, and we're always tell anybody yet. I can't tell you guys yet what's coming out, but we're getting into that phase of seeing really beyond the coffee packaging and turning it into something completely else. And that's about all I can say about that. But you're going to be like, this doesn't even look like a coffee package anymore. So we're at that state. So it becomes a continuing evolution of getting it right. And if people think, we just sit down and, scratch this up overnight, it's far from. It starts with concepts, ideas, going back and forth, renderings, sketches, revisions after revisions till everything's perfect and we feel comfortable putting it out there. artists feel comfortable putting it out there, and knowing that we can get behind this and support this. And a lot of the ideas and concepts we focus on aren't narrowed down. It's never about like an album they've put out. It's never about a song that they've put out or anything like that. There's always this bigger, almost existential idea to it, especially with Laughing Monkey Machine, which you saw. It's see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, and kind of primality and how that goes in society. Because we want people really thinking about stuff like that when they go in this. And there is almost kind of this Stephen King universe element to it, where all these labels are kind of starting to connect, and it's out of our control in kind of like this bigger story all together. And that's kind of interesting to us, that we kind of realized the other day, where it's kind of like the story at this point is kind of writing itself, which is cool. And I think it's cool for the fans out there.
Amazing, amazing stuff. And by the way, since I have the ministry, there it is right there, if people can see it. Uh, when I look at this bag, I see like the last 25 years of ministry, iconography, album covers, and merch. Like it feels right, and I think that's the best compliment I can say is it feels right. We like, it's not just good coffee, it's the whole experience, which is amazing. And that's what we've become an experiential culture. So
Yeah,
hopefully that offset having tangible stuff again and physical merch and media and a packaging that shows love to the genre and to the fan that paid for it. I think it's super special. And in this also time of disposable everything else, this is something real. So I think, I'm sure you guys have fanboys that buy everything and collect everything the minute there's a drop. You do a very nice job on your marketing and
totally.
social media, just as an outside person.
Yeah, absolutely. And now we're taking it to the next level that we've been taking it to is, in stores, on the road and tours. We just did a big promotion with Testament the other night when they were playing in Brooklyn on May 13th. And, we brought in a photographer, videographer. We had a huge banner for people to stand in front of and get pictures taken. And it was cool to see like fathers and sons and but husbands and wives, and getting them like really into this experience. And then we start to see the artists are like get really behind it as well. Guar especially has been amazing to work with. We did an in-store where we brought out fans and we were hosing them down with blood with Blothar. And I mean, like, really, that's the next step. That's the next evolution of like, and this has been our road year of like, how do we take this on the road and actually make it almost kind of like that theme park heavy metal experience for the fans in person as well, and continuing to work at that at the bigger festivals and bigger things. One of the coolest things that we've ever did, and we've been working on this project for years, and we're so excited and happy to get across the finish line, is the first legitimate haunted coffee in the world. And we just released it with Katrina Weedman. We shipped up coffee to the Pennhurst Asylum in Pennsylvania and actually had it rested on site in the morgue, in the basement, in the haunted nursery, all around. So the fans could actually take this haunted coffee back home. And I don't know, it's going to, bad juju or good juju. I have no idea. It's a disclaimer we throw out there. But, again, taking it to the next level of, the possibilities of, what we can do with a coffee bean.
Right on. That's amazing. I have just a few more questions for you, man. You've been fantastic. I feel
Yeah.
like in another life we would not just be hat twins, but best friends, because you seem just like same kind of vibe as me, which I dig so much.
Hey, man.
Music, man. Obviously, music's a big part of this, but also horror and other things. So obviously you referenced a very deep cut for Metallica people, even though Metallica is the biggest thing ever. The original Garage Days is a real deep cut for me from my youth also, and something very important to me. What were some important bands for you growing up that got you into music? And it doesn't have to be heavy music. I wouldn't be surprised if there's some other stuff in there too.
It's on our website. And I think my first introduction to music in general was, my older brother. And this is back in the 80s of, and I think around the time, Joshua Tree was dropping, In Excess was, dropping first album, even like, Pet Shop Boys and all that, and, pop culture. And, I'd listen to a couple albums, but where my moment where I really discovered with what I was really going to align the most. And I like a lot of, like you said yourself before we started the podcast, there's a lot of genres of music I like, whether it's hardcore, punk, indie, but my first roots were in metal, and it's something that's always stuck with me. And I got to throw it out there to Peace of Mind, Iron Maiden. My brother had a mixtape, and we were living over in Europe at the time, military brat and all that good stuff. And my brother had this mixtape of Sticky Fingers, Rolling Stones on one side, and he had Iron Maiden on the other. And on side A, I got through, Brown Sugar, and I got through my favorite song to this day on that album is Sway. And I was like, this is really cool, getting into this kind of weird, different, than the pop, and this is kind of cool. And then I flipped over, and when where Eagles Dare comes on, Nico's, drums on the opening, and I was like, this is weird, this is unique, this is kind of cool, strange. I kind of like it, very aggressive. And when Revelations came on, it was right almost, hey, can't use a better term than that. The Revelations came on, and I was just hooked, addicted. And then, that kind of was my gates of hell opening for me. And then from there, it was, going down down this rabbit hole of just eating, breathing, living this. And everything from Metallica to Megadeth to Slayer to even first Cannibal Records, and going down. And I just have that personality where I was thinking about this the other day, where if somebody gives me 2 inches, I want to step 3 inches over the line. And for me, what my tastes have always been, I'm always looking for something a little bit more extreme. So, that gets into black metal, it gets into the dark realms of, death metal, or even, Archspire, where it's like, how many BPMs can I get? I love that shit. I love that stuff. So that's, some of the big, pinnacles for me. And I really have to throw it out to that era. I think that was the first real renaissance of heavy metal, of albums like, when Seasons in the Abyss were coming out, and like Rust and Peace and the Big Four, and, Practice What You Preach, and, and all that records. And it was just this renaissance. And what we're trying to get across too in the copies we do is trying to get, it's so awesome to go to shows and see kids starting to get into this. And it's awesome that we can help kind of share some of these legendary artists, whether it's Cavalera and, Cannibal and Testament and all these guys, a ministry even, of going back to them and pre- presenting it in a way that was presented back to us at that time. And that's what's really cool. It's being a part of that and sharing that is, I think, what we're all about. So, but yeah, I mean, I always got to go back to Peace of Mind and say that's, my all-time entry level record. But I mean, there's been, records over time that have really transformed and changed my life. One of those records I'll throw out there is a band called the EX, out of the Netherlands. And I don't know how many people really know them, but I saw them back opening for Fugazi when I lived in Washington State back in 98 or 99. I think it was 99. And, they had just come out with a record produced by Merge Records. I think it was Merge or Touch and Go. I can't remember which one. Anyways, they just had the most killer live performance where people were just standing there like in shock and awe, not even moving, just like, oh my God, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. Very noise punk. And when I listened to that record, where you started hearing sounds you've never heard before performed on a guitar, and you started hearing actual poetry and stuff written into music. Starters and Alternators is that album. If anybody hasn't listened to it, it'll change your life. Go out and listen to it. So there's different stuff like that that is actually transformed, my love of music and what I like. And, we try to take elements of that and also incorporate that into, what we do, not directly with the artist, but just different ideas from that, incorporating into this. And, and like lately, I guess I've been getting back into some of the stuff I feel like I missed, back in the 80s. It's hard to gobble up so much music, and so you start to go back and start to find these loves of albums like in the 80s, or bands that you never listened to. So that's kind of where I'm at the stage right now, is revisiting a lot of stuff, actually.
Amazing, amazing. Maybe a band, perhaps a band you missed with some deep and great roots. Cryptic Slaughter, always my first recommendation for people for overlooked bands. Originally led there by Blasco, who now is, he's no big deal, just the guy behind Liquid Death and plays with Zach
Yeah.
Wild and all this shit. Ozzy. Super cool. Let's talk for a second about cold brew and K cups, because I was not traditionally a cold brew person, but I love the cold brew you sent me. So that's another one I don't have. I have the can hidden somewhere in a shelf, but I didn't have it handy, but I should have pulled it out, because also same kind of great packaging and really, goes down well for a person that's not. I like iced coffee and very, my hot coffee I'll take a lot of different ways. My iced coffee I like the same way all the time. So the cold brew fascinated me, and I'm super glad that I liked it. Tell us about getting in to cold, like these nitro cold brews, and also
Yeah.
K cups. They're so popular now.
Yeah, the Nitro Cold Brew started off with Cannibal, and we knew we loved the product. We know everybody loved the product. People, record stores wanted it in, bars wanted it in as a more of a a heavy metal like NA alternative, and even like in the motorcycle, we do some motorcycle labels as well with like Choppers Inc. and whatnot. And kind of the idea behind that was, how do you get the metalhead going to a concert and having something in their hand that's not a Starbucks or not a Dasani water or not a Coca-Cola, so they still feel like they're a part of the crowd and feel like they're a part of the party and feel very inclusive. So we're like, how can we make a nitro cold brew can look and feel like a beer at the same time? And that's what we really did with Cannibal. And we're like, man, this is no beer can's going to look like this. Is kind of crazy. And did it with Choppers Inc. and did it with even Ministry and Cavalera and whatnot. We're like, it's kind of cool. But with Cannibal, we had all these different works of promo art that we had worked on, with Vince, and reiterations, kind of like to a point where it's like, oh my god, we got so many of these. It's like Iron Maiden covers. So we kind of like Vince's zombie has become like a little Eddie now. It's kind of taken on a life of its own. It's really insane. Kudos to Vince. And we kind of like had this idea of like, well, let's release one can with one artwork, then let's release another. Let's get to a 6-pack, so it's a collectible 6-pack. Then let's go all the way to a case of 24. And right now with Cannibal, we're getting ready to release, I think, finally number 5. We took a break for a little while, but we're getting back to that. And we're getting into slim cans because everybody is and doing that. And it's been cool. We think it is the best product that is going to be for the festivals, whether it's a DWP festival that size, 200,000 people, whether it's a metal cruise or whether it's a local show. It's really, for us, it's just about getting the energy in you, getting the caffeine. If you need to sober up, or if you don't, you're just not drinking alcohol, it's a cool thing, and you're going to feel really cool drinking this and holding this. And it's also a collectible at the end of the day. I mean, like, you go back to, college days or whatever, people were collecting beer bottles, why not have coffee cans? Why not, resemble that? So yeah, we're really excited about that. Our first cans, and I'll just let everybody know now, is coming up is going to be Motorhead Nitro Cold Brew Speed Freak cans will be out very soon. We'll do a big release on that. Will be killer. Getting the sneak preview here, audio version, I guess. And the K cups, yeah, we considered doing it. We did a couple of test market runs, and the coffee world preferences change literally weekly. So it's like when we do events, it's like we have all these grind options, and we're kind of like, this week's percolators are popular. This week it's espresso. There is no rhyme or reason to it. The algorithm, we cannot figure it out. So people just weren't drinking the pods for a long time. And we were kind of like, yeah, let's not bring it back. Then all of a sudden there was demand. So we decided, you know what, let's do something different. All the other coffee companies are sending it out to be done. Let's bring everything in-house, machinery. We're already roasting in-house and packaging and everything and shipping and doing everything, literally from scratch. Let's do the pods that way. So we partnered with a company to use patented technology and patented machinery and bring it in. And the difference that the pods that we've been producing and the ones you get off a shelf is night and day. Like I was really surprised. I was like, I can't tell the difference between a pot of coffee I brew and one of these K cups now. And the art on the cups, like for example, like right here is Cavalera, making sure the artwork is on there and making sure every cup is just perfect before it goes out the door. Yeah, it's been successful so far, making it at a good price point. And yeah, it's been really, really successful.
Right on, and made in America. Very well. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
Super cool to unpack all that. I'd love to. I've been in a coffee factory where coffee's roasted and packaged. I would love to, if I ever get down your way again, I'd love to throw on a hard hat and walk around the factory and do a tour. Just for a last question, because I always like to end on a wild card question. If you could take a band out for coffee, what band would it be?
Oh, that is
Living or dead, any band,
or
current, historical, your choice.
and it's funny you say this because we actually have a vault here. It's a proverbial vault, but it's no, it's actually exists physical. It's more file folder, but you get a lot of time sitting around sorting beans and roasting coffee and packaging, and everybody does it here, and your mind starts to wander, and the stereo's blaring, day and night, somebody's playlist, and you start to get these ideas and you get on these tangents and you start talking to somebody and going back and forth. Like, yeah, this would be cool and that would be cool. So people would be surprised at the amount of unrevealed artwork and concepts that we actually have in the vault. So usually sometimes it's funny because we'll go to an artist and we'll say, hey, what do you think of this? And they're like, well, it's already done. And we're like, yeah, we had some time on our hands and put this all together. But I will say out there at the top, I mean, I just think it would be amazing to I'm going to go back and I know, I'm saying, peace of mind and all that. Working with Iron Maiden would be next level. I mean, it would be something that, I would say this is kind of one of the closest to the pinnacle as you can get. And the reason I say that is just the pure volume and amount of work that they have out there is amazing. And the artwork is insane. And it would be so cool to be a part of that history in some small way, to have Eddie on a coffee bag, in some reiteration, in some concept. That would just be like a dream come true. And I think the fans globally would be totally excited for that. And it would also be kind of irony. I mean, a British band, known for, a country known for tea, having a coffee, a legit British metal band actually having a coffee out there would be kind of funny too. So a little bit of irony.
There you go. I love it so much, and I'm rooting for you for that. And I think it would be kind of fun to have a cup of coffee with Bruce Dickinson and Steve Harris personally as well. Mike,
Hey,
man, yeah,
you
why
met
not?
Derek Riggs at a HorrorCon back when we launched Cannibal Corpse, and we went up to him, and he's got a bag of Cannibal Corpse. So even Derek knows we're out there.
Sick, sick. I'm so proud of your success. I'm glad that we've supported you the whole way so far, and you keep making them. We'll keep drinking them because I can't function without my cup of Joe. Mike, just such a pleasure to hear from you today and hear your story. Cheers to you. Thank you for everything
Yeah,
you do
yeah,
for this
and
scene, and I hope to meet you in the wild eventually. And stay tuned to Ghost Call for more unboxing and taste testing videos because I'm sure I'm going
yeah,
to make another one
and
soon.
just
And
let you
yeah,
know, and the fans know out there, there are this summer, I'm just going to tease, is packed. And you are going to see some epic stuff that we've been holding out for just summer releases. So it's going to blow people's minds. So, again, subscribe to our emails, follow us on socials as we drop this stuff, because these are some of the most interesting, some of the most evolutionary things that we've done and we're going to drop. And it's going to be such a surprise. I don't think people are going to see where it's coming from. They're just going to be like, what the hell? But it's going to be so cool at the same time.
amazing. We'll stay tuned for it. Thanks for hanging out with Ghost Call today,
Yeah,
man. I
man.
really greatly appreciate you.
Yeah. Thank you, man.